Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Grief in the Raw. My name is Kelli Holloway, and I am so thrilled for the conversation today, for you to hear from my very special guest. We've got a heavy topic that's going to be made a little lighter through our intentional discussion. So I want to introduce to you right now Mr. Mitch Marchand. He is an Emmy-nominated writer, producer, comedian, husband, father, and so much more. His transference across brands has positioned him for greatness in the entertainment industry with a career that spans over 20 years. Originally from Queens, hashtag Hollis to Hollywood, he has taken his talents in front of the screen in iconic pictures of Black cinema, including Juice, Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood, and Most Wanted, just to name a few. As a writer, his craft is unmatched, as he has written for the Emmys, Oscars, and head writer for the BET Awards 2024. Y'all, please welcome to the stage, Mr. Mitch Marchand.
I don't even know who you're talking about. Who is that guy? I like to meet him. He sounds kind of impressive.
Listen, you get all the credits, right?
Oh, man.
Oh, thank you
It's
so
so
much.
embarrassing sometimes. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, my friends always tell me to stop being humble, but it's like, I'm like a roach. You just can't kill me.
You want to just run away from it?
Yeah, no, you just can't kill me. So I just keep surviving and finding my way into different circumstances and opportunities. But thank you for having me, Kelli. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. It's so wonderful to be with you. So today we're going to be breaking down and talking through compound grief.
Mm-hmm.
But before we delve into that, Mitch, something that I always like to do before the conversation is check where we are on the grief scale. So as the listeners know, the grief scale is used to check in with yourself, with your mind, with your body to see where you are. 1 is not affected by grief at all today. Like you're chilling and you're good and it doesn't affect you. 10 is very affected by grief. Like overall, just a very heavy feeling. We do this to kind of level set our discussion, but also to check in with each other. So I got to ask you, what level are you on the grief scale today?
That's an interesting question. I would always say that based on everything, I kind of always function at a 4. On a daily basis, even though like I'm having a great day today. A lot of times, especially recently, like the latest person I lost was my mother-in-law, and I saw her in a dream last night. So she's been heavy on my mind today, but in a good way. My mother-in-law was a light, very spiritual woman, and it's interesting. Because I didn't know that. I mean, I always appreciated her, but like, it's just one of those things where it's like we live so far apart. I didn't see her a lot. I'd see her maybe once or twice a year. We talk on the phone frequently because my wife used to always call her parents. And so I think I always function at a 4 every day because I'm always thinking about my mom and dad.
Yeah.
Sometimes and certain things pop up in my head, like over the course of the last few weeks, the U.S. Open is happening in New York, and that always connects me to my mom, who got me into tennis when I was little. So,
wow.
And so, I was watching the Coco golf match, and literally just like kind of taking myself to spinning my own belief and wondering, like thinking that like, it would be great if me and her could have been there to watch it, So I function in that space a lot. I would say 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, number 1, my condolences for the loss of your mother-in-law.
Yes, thank you.
And also for all of the loved ones that you have that have held you over the course of your life that you've had to say goodbye to.
Well, that's the one thing I don't tell you about getting older.
Yeah.
It's like, I obviously knowing I was going to have this conversation, I had some thoughts about it, and it's like what nobody tells you about getting older is that you basically lose all your OGs. You lose the people that you know, you're like in the movie The Godfather, you're consigliere. You lose that person who you can just, like me and my mother, you know, even though she was my mother, we'd have frank conversations like
I love it.
about women, about business, about whatever. And my mama was a tough lady, so like, you know, she suffered no fools. And you know, it's like, so that was always something about our relationship, you know, since she's been gone, that I miss, and having that sounding board, you know, you know, somebody that knows me unequivocally. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah. Your center,
Yeah.
right? You know, when I think about my grief scale today, it's a little higher than it's and that's interesting that you say functioning at a 4.
Yeah.
And I love the way that you frame that, because that helps folks to understand that even if your grief scale is not, you can function beyond that 1 or 2, right? And a 4 doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you, but you learn how to manage it. My grief today is probably a 6 or a 7 for 2 reasons. I heard this morning that there was a school shooting in GA, and that 2 children and 2 teachers have now left this world. That they were shot and by a 14-year-old kid. And so, of course, my brain automatically goes to my children who are in grade school, and just imagining the turmoil and the trauma associated with that heavy of a loss that those parents are shouldering right now. My heart goes out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about, you know, having my son is in college now, but even, you know, with him going to high school, every once in a while I would get a text from the school saying they've shut down and there's a disturbance, and I'm just like, well, what the hell's going on? And
exactly.
And if he doesn't answer the phone right away, then now I'm even extra nervous. And the school is like maybe like 10 minutes from the house. I'm like, I'm just going up there. I don't care. Like, you know, like I need to find out what's going on. So I mean, I can't even fathom that in terms of like what, as a parent of 4, you know, with each of my children, like, you know, just very thankful that nothing has, you know, befallen them in that way. You know, it's a tragedy. It's really a tragedy.
Yeah. So prayers going out to those families that are affected, to anyone in GA or anyone that has been affected by that particular side of pain. And, you know, speaking of and moving through that really difficult piece of pain that's hard to penetrate when you have it compounded. It almost happens so quickly that you can't keep up. So when we discuss compound grief, I kind of want to level set for anyone listening that maybe has never heard that term before. We're talking about compound grief that's also known as bereavement overload. It's defined as the way you feel about and experiencing loss back to back over a relatively brief period of time. This is not just associated with death of multiple loved ones, but it could also be job changes all at once, relocation, the end of significant relationships, decline in health, etc., etc. So in the context of compound grief or bereavement overload, can you tell me more about your family members that have now become your ancestors and how their presence and their absence have shaped you?
Well, this is when I was contacted about doing this, like, it definitely took me a second to even think about it, because my life has been almost started with loss. My birth mother passed when I was 6 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And I was left to live with her sister. I was left in the care of her 3 siblings. Her sister, both of her sisters, but I lived with my aunt in New York through the school year, and then I would go to St. Louis and live with my aunt Gladys, and then my uncle Clarence lived in Jersey, so I would stay with him on the weekends. Every 2 weeks I'd go to Jersey and stay with him. So I was kind of, you know, perfectly latchkey in a way, but like, you know, I was taken care of. I was loved on. I never felt the loss of my mother in terms of, like, I never felt the lack of love. But And then, I kind of created a family in my own life because my dad left after the funeral and I never saw him again.
Oh my
So I
gosh,
was
I'm so
basically
sorry.
left in terms of being cared for by my aunt in New York and her husband, who became my mom and dad to the point where I called them mom and dad. Like I was 6 years old. I couldn't fathom not being able to call somebody mom.
Yeah.
So she was my mom, and then you know I lost her, and when I lost her, this is the one I talk about. Like we used to go to tennis, and
Mm-hmm.
she'd go to the basketball games, and she was just like a Christine Casella. She was just such a force.
Mm.
And then my uncle Bob, her husband, like that was my pop. You know, he taught me everything. He taught me about being present for your children. Um, he taught me to always be accountable. And the funny thing, if there's anything funny in this, is that my uncle Bob had dementia, and so my sisters and I were all kind of preparing for him. So like I would take jobs, I would take writing jobs in New York City just so I could like get some time to see them. It didn't
Yeah.
like you didn't have to pay my rate. I was just gonna like if you had $500, I was gonna go to New York in a hotel room. I would go just so
I
I could
love
spend
it.
some time with my family. And in that time that we were preparing for Pop to go, Mom's heart condition took over, and we lost her prior. So
Mm.
to him, but it literally happened in the course of 8 months. Like she left, and then we lost him 8 months later.
My goodness.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of proximity, that kind of stuff happens all the time. I mean, my best friend, um, we lost his mom, and then subsequently, right after that, we lost his dad. I'm talking about Marlon Wayans. He's my best friend. We grew up together in
Wow.
high school. We've been friends since high school.
And
And his
condolences
parents
to
are
him
very
and his
much
family
like my
too.
parents as well.
Yeah.
Like when Marlon didn't go to school, his dad would drive me to school. Like anytime we were in New York City, even if Marlon wasn't with me, I'd go visit his dad. Or get on the phone with his mom. So like that's what I'm saying. Like I've unfortunately been in a situation where I think grief kind of finds its way to me in a lot of different ways. But at the same time, I think what it does is just only allows me to embrace the time I have with people on this planet, and
Mm.
also really try to utilize every day. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
like last night I did stand up. I had a great show. My friends were in the audience. I was
Hey.
nervous as hell, and we just had a good and like just like a simple, easy kind of night. Like it wasn't nothing, glamorous or sitting on top of in a club with bottles in your hand and nothing. It wasn't nothing crazy, but it was just a fun night, and we went and had burgers afterwards. But it's
I
like
love it.
just being around love. I learned that that's my thing now
Mm-hmm.
in terms of dealing with grief. Is I try to be around love in all forms in all ways as much as I possibly can.
Speak on that because life is too short, right, to be surrounded by anything less than that.
No, yeah, I mean you gotta. My thing is like even in terms of like certain people, and it's funny because I'm kind of like a jaded New York dude. Like I'm not into like the word energy, but I think sometimes the California in me comes out, and I'm so like sometimes I'm like, yeah, I don't need that energy anymore. Like
Right.
I'm not involving myself in that, or I don't want to be around that because I know it drains me. It took me a long time to get there, but I started to realize like certain things and people or tastes that I had they weren't impacting me in a positive way. So I just had to find a way to pull myself away from that. Sometimes it's with people that I love, but
Yeah.
it's like I love you from afar. I wish nothing but the best for you, but in terms of I need for my spirit is I need to go elsewhere,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
And there's so much maturity in that to be able to say, I'm going to care for myself first because I've been through too much,
yeah.
you
But
know?
at the same time, it's like it's like especially when you talk about long term, relationships, family members, a certain. It's like you miss them,
Yeah.
you miss the romanticism of what you always thought they brought to you, and
Hmm.
then sometimes the realization of uh, what they did to you that you were not aware of kind of hits you in the head like, wow, like what's happening, like what's going on, like why do I feel this way, I why does this person make me feel less than.
Mm.
And so that's it's a difficult dance to maintain and overcome. Matter of fact, this is my tattoos. This is my mom right here.
Let me see.
This is
I
my
love it.
angel wing. This is what I got once she passed.
Mm,
It's my angel wing
I love it.
because she's my
Um,
angel.
oh, I think too, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, even in the last few years,
Mm-hmm.
some of the more public losses that have happened, even with your friends or close colleagues in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
namely, uh, is it Winsome Sinclair,
Yeah,
Erica Ash, Chadwick Boseman? Like it just seems like this cascade. So number one, my condolences to
thank
you
you,
and their families that
thank
are
you.
deeply impacted still today. But with this cascade of loss, how
Mm-hmm.
have you prevented that bereavement overload?
Kelly, you been out here researching on my pain?
Listen, I try
Dang.
to be I try to be prepared. I told you this was gonna be heavy. My
Wow.
bad.
You out here researching my pain. Yeah, I mean, the Winsome thing hit me kind of hard because we had literally just kind of got back in contact. I've known Winsome since I was like a 17-year-old kid. Like Winsome was one of the people that was responsible for me even being in the movie Juice, and
Praise
she
God.
always, just championed me. And I remember we spoke maybe about a year ago, and she was just gushing about me, and she's like, "I'm so proud of you. I'm just watching what you've become, and I always knew you had it." And so, like, just losing somebody like that, even though we didn't speak often, it's just to me, I just, it's like when the world loses a dope human being that impacts the world,
Yeah.
And when you talk about Chadwick was it's funny because like I have a lot of friends in the industry. Chadwick, I would never go as far to say he was my friend, but we were always cool with one another. And he was always like I remember just because we used to always go to the same bar called the Dime, and that's how we got cool. And so I would see him, and we would just. And I think what it was, I think we just had this realness about one another. Like I didn't trip off of him being Chadwick Boseman, and he didn't want me tripping off of that. Because I always felt like he talked to me more about what I was doing than what he was doing. But I always loved, like I told this story when I posted about him the other day. I always remember the week Black Panther came out, and I had saw the movie on Friday, and I go to the Dime on Saturday. I'm in there by myself, and I'm walking out to go outside, and somebody grabs my arm, and it's Chadwick. And I literally said, "Yo, what are you doing here?" Like I thought my first, I didn't even say hi. I was just like, "Yo, what are you doing here?" And he was like, "Why? Why can't I come here?" I'm like, "Because you're the Black Panther. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing here?" He's like, "Where you going? You about to leave?" I'm like, "No, I'm not going anywhere." He's like, "Oh, I'm coming outside with you." And
Wow.
that was our friendship. Like it was a mutual respect thing. And so to the point when I wrote my first Oscars, that was the same year that Black Panther was nominated. So Chadwick was there, Michael B. Jordan was there, and I remember he walked into the green room and he saw me and he kind of like beeline, and like that's a room of the Oscar green room is the room of celebrity.
I bet it's
Like you
ridiculous.
bumping shoulders with the big wigs. I ain't gonna lie. Like I don't get starstruck. That's a starstruck kind of room. And
I
he
can
beeline
only
past
imagine.
all these people to come talk to me. And he was like, "Yo, you writing this?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yo, man, he said, I'm so happy to see you here, man. I'm so proud of you, man." And I had no idea,
Wow.
during all that time that we got to know one another, what he was going through.
Mm.
What I respect most about him, outside of how incredible of an artist he was that I got an opportunity during his last years to really watch a man live his life out loud.
Mm.
And I would hope that I had the kind of grace that he possessed, because that in and of itself is a rare thing. This was a man that stood on. You talk about standing on business. Like,
Yeah.
this was a man. So yeah, it was. I'm just happy our lives, kind of crossed.
How
I was
incredible.
very fortunate to have known him. Yeah.
And him, you, because you are a light. You know.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
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 What does that feel like to mourn privately a devastation that feels extremely public?
I remember where I was when I found out about Chadwick. I was actually working on. Oddly enough, I was working on a project, a pilot, with Little Rel, comedian Little Rel,
Yeah.
and we were at a spot called State Social, in Hollywood, like bar, kind of like a bar, sports bar kind of thing. We were outside, I think, because this wasn't. It might have been. Chadwick didn't die during COVID, was it?
I don't think so.
Was it COVID? I think so. We were out.
All that's a blur.
We were outside. That's why I remember we were sick, because normally you're inside state, but they had like an outside area together. So me and Lil Rel had like a little private area, and we were literally kind of talking about this superhero project we were trying to do, like a comedy superhero project for television that would feature obviously Lil Rel. And all of a sudden, my phone lit up, and that's when we found out. I think it was a Friday, if I'm not mistaken. I think he passed on a Friday, and it just, it just blows your mind. It just blows your mind because, there's very few good people in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about celebrities or whatever. Like, I think that's the thing that hit me about. I think after a few days after he passed, I started to really think about the times when we would engage with one another. I mean, one time we was in a dime, and this girl didn't know who he was, and she was kind of talking shit about him, and he was like cracking jokes, like, yeah, he's a hack, and like, I was just like, he didn't take himself seriously like that, and I just thought it was so funny, like, and I was like, yo, you don't know who da 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 da, and like me and him like did like a comedy routine in the middle of this bar, and he just kept looking, because he kept saying like, don't tell her, like, don't tell her. Like, so
I love that y'all have that memory.
yeah, no, that was one of the fun. I was just like, yo, because she was talking mad shit, and I was just like, you have no idea who you're sitting next to right now.
People often don't.
Again, like, but that also speaks to the character of the human being. Like, he didn't take himself that seriously, because I know a lot of Hollywood cats that would have wanted to run down their resume. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so I mean, I just we lost a lot losing Chadwick. The industry
and I think
lost
that
a lot. Humanity lost a lot.
Yeah, that speaks to the just the caliber of the person that he was, because even not knowing him, that loss was felt. I remember where I was. A lot of people that in the fan zone still could see through that star-like quality to just his humanity. And his humanity was just so large. And I think when we lose people, even when it's back to back to back, and it feels like we lose a gem, we lose someone that we are so super connected with, and then there's just silence, that can feel even isolating, right? Well, and then
What I will say to that is, as somebody who has experienced back-to-back losses, things of that nature. Even like, my mother-in-law just passed, but my father-in-law passed prior, like a few months prior to her. You know, I think what I try to glean from that is these losses are here to propel us to be stronger in ourselves.
Okay, that's a gem. Can you say that again, please? Because I
I
want
don't remember what I
everybody
said,
to
but
catch
like
it. But
these losses are here to prepare us to be better than ourselves. I really feel like I never forget when we buried my mom, my aunt, my Christine, and I remember driving back to the hotel in the limousine, and everybody was like kind of talking, and everybody handled grief differently, but I had like my little quiet moment. I remember looking out the window, and I just remember feeling like I want to be the best possible version of myself for her now. Even though I had accomplished a lot in my career and I had a family and kids that were flourishing and all of that, like I just wanted to be a better version of that. I felt like her legacy was me, and I had to step up. And I'll be honest, like there's days when I'm absolutely that, and there's days when I'm not that. There's days when I'm way lesser than that. But I think in terms of making sure that people that pour into you, like even like Marlon's dad and Marlon's mom, like they were I never called them Mrs. or Mr. That was Ma and Dad. Like they were my parents. So like losing them was. Whew, I cried more at Marlon's dad's funeral than he did. Like I was devastated.
Yeah.
I was devastated, because that's what I say. Like, at this point in my life, I'm turned, God willing, I turn 51 on November 2nd. And
happy early birthday.
Thank you. And I'm, just tripping off the fact that, it's like all my OGs are gone. You know what I'm saying? Like those phone calls when you have like, those Mother's Day and Father's Day roll calls you got to make. Those I have fewer of those calls to make, and that's a realization that sits in your head heavy. Like also like the weird thing about losses is like you realize like I remember my first time landing in New York City after the loss of my mother, and I'm at the baggage claim. And I just instinctively grab my phone and go to call her to let her know I landed. And in my mind, I had not. That lets me know like I hadn't fully processed it in that way. Like in my mind, it's just like, oh, she's just away, but I'll see her again. You know. And I remember getting some really really good news about back when a show that I was writing on got picked up. And again, like my first instinct still is to call her. Yeah. When I got my Emmy nomination, like so that's to me the biggest part about grief for me is maintaining it through things that bring you joy. Because it's crazy how the loss of that person is always a loss, but it really hurts when you can't share good news with them. Yeah. You can't share great stories with them. Like my youngest son, he's playing Division III basketball in Chicago, and he had a 20-point game, his first game as a freshman. I was so proud.
Come on now.
Who do you think I want to call?
Mom. Yeah.
I want my mom and dad, like especially my dad was the biggest. Like the reason I'm a rabid sports fan is because of him. Like so it's like I know he would have gushed over that. So and my uncle, I lost my uncle last year, and had a brain aneurysm, and it's just, yeah, man. You just gotta really appreciate your people while they're here. You know, I know we
Yeah.
always say that, but I think there's a lot of truth in that. There's a lot of truth. That's the one thing that I've learned. Like, I don't give a damn if I'm upset with somebody. You know, my wife and I might have had an argument or whatever, but I still leave out saying I love you to her
That's right.
because I don't know. We just don't know. Like, she got on the plane the other day, and you know, we hadn't had the greatest last couple of days, but I walked her outside. I put her bags in the car. I hugged her tight and told her I loved her, because you just never know. So I guess if I give any advice to anybody, somebody who's experienced so much loss, is like, really try to do your best to appreciate your people. When you think about somebody, reach out to them. If it's a text, you know, even if it's like even sometimes it's like something like a feeling, you know, it's like it's something that you share, some mutual interest, like you know, like one of my boys. This is like another whole part of my life, but I used to be a rapper.
Oh.
And so every once in a while, I'll see some. Don't laugh, Bethany. I was kind of nice, but every once in a while, like there'll be a post I'll see, and I'll send it to my rhyme partner, and you know, we don't talk that much anymore, but like, just like, yo, this is the kind of thing, like, real rap is still here. Like, sometimes we still have that conversation, you know what I'm saying? And we'll share those kind of things. Just like I think it was who was doing a free, I think it was like Black Thought or something, and I was just like, yo, like, this guy's still nice.
Yeah.
He's over 50 and he's still spitting that shit, and I was just like, you know, but like, you share those moments just because, like, I don't know next time I'll see my bandmate, you know what I mean?
That's
he's
right.
married, I'm married, he got kids, and he's a real estate agent, big blowing up out here in LA, and you know, he's got stuff to do, and obviously I have stuff to do, so we don't have the time to always be together. But you know, it's like you just try to make many moments just so that people can know, so you can still make sure you touch your people.
Yeah. And I'm gonna ask for Bethany who is our show's producer. She's got to find a picture of you spitting or something. Like, we gotta figure out
That's
how to
hard
get
to
that
find.
included.
That was pre-internet. That was pre-internet. It's funny because I'm literally in my office, and there's like one little like poster we made up that because I used to sell my CD. We made a CD, and no, I'm not sending it to you.
we have ways. We have ways to get what we
sent
need.
it, but we used to sell our CDs out of our car. I mean, for 2 years, that's how I fed my family.
Wow.
We literally made an album. We pressed it up. We made CDs, and we would literally go. I don't have. Bethany keeps making like, "Where's the CD face?" Like, no, you're not getting the CD. Maybe one day I'll send it to you. But anyway, but yeah, we used to sell our CDs out of a trunk of our car. Like, literally, like, go from grocery stores to 7-Elevens, and you know, and I would make anywhere from 85 to 150. Fridays was always a good day because everybody got paid, so that might be like a $200 day. And
Nice.
that's how I fed my family for 2 years out here living in LA. Like, you know, the hustle was real. But I also, like, it'd be funny because every once in a while, like, you would pitch it and somebody would buy it, and then, you know, you would, like, literally, they would put it in immediately, and you hear your song as they were driving off, like, yo, that's my song in their car. Like, that's crazy. Like, it's crazy.
I love it.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're talking about in terms of wanting to share the happy moments, even with your person or your people that are no longer here, I have this saying that I say with my girls. They're 3 and 6 now, and they were here, of course, when my mother passed almost 2 years ago now. And so even when they have these really bright moments that they want to share with my mom, they called her Nana, right? She was their Nana. We have this little saying that we go back and forth with. I'll say, she's got a front row seat. And then they'll say back to me, so let's give her a show, right? And so to me, that makes that is very similar to what you're doing. Like, you've got to live your life to the fullest degree because you want to do it for them. There's something that ignites in you that wants to keep on going because you know they're watching you. you know they believe in you and they're proud of you. And so that reminds me of that, and I'm so glad that you shared that piece with us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, how I envision heaven is like everybody living in the same neighborhood.
I love
I
it.
envision like even like people I didn't know but I love. Like I always look at like when I like think about when the Yankees are on. My dad was a big Yankee fan. I always envision him and Fife in the living room watching the Yankee game and watching the Mets. Like I imagine like this is like this neighborhood of all my loved ones together. And
I love it.
they're all, my brother who I lost a long time ago, like I just always, I think that's the thing that my coping mechanism, if you will, to give me comfort, to let me know that all those angels I have are all together and rooting for the, greater good. Like, I always remember the fact that, like, when I lost my mom, it had been about 2 months after, and I just randomly get an email from someone offering me a job to write for the Emmys, which I had never been offered before.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like I had never. I remember I was at the gym and I remember I saw the thing go off on my phone and I was like, "Oh, this is bullshit." Like somebody's
Like this
me.
can't be real.
This cannot be real. Like this can't be real. And then I like literally like got off the machine and then I really reread it and it was and I was like, "Oh wow!" Like I got offered the Emmys. Like this was my first time ever doing it. This was like. I actually still have the thing right here. This was like 2015.
Wow.
And I had never ever been offered. It just came out of nowhere. I was like, what is happening? And this, so I always feel like, the angels are moving in, to assist me and guide me and, protect me. And, so that's the saving grace of, of loss is to know that you're protected. By the spirits that loved you here on this earth and want to see you thrive even when they're gone.
I love it. An angelic village.
Yes.
Ooh. So listen.
Like when I say like it was my brother's birthday, July 3rd, and I it's funny, we have so few pictures together, so I always post the same picture. But I was like, I hope mommy makes you a nice cake today. Because I just imagine him celebrating his birthday.
I love that imagery.
Yeah.
Yes. So I have this part of one of the segments that we do, right? We unpack something that we've seen on social media that speaks to grief, or something that kind of meets at the intersection of grief and social, things that we see, the things that we kind of download on a daily basis. And so I'm sure you've seen this video before, or this clip before, from The Breakfast Club, and they've got Tyrese up there and he starts talking a little bit about his loss and what transpires. So let me play it real quick and we'll discuss.
You deal with a lot of grief. Like I think about, Brother Paul Walker, and I think about
John
Singleton, your mother.
Divorce. Both of my sisters died.
Yeah, your sisters. People don't look at divorce as grief, but you did. You lose things, You probably lost a lot of friends when you went through your mental health breakdown. Are you really, have you really taken the time to deal with all of that grief? Or do you just try to stay busy to avoid it?
I'm doing the best I can with every 24 hours I get. That's it.
Get some tissue for me, brother.
No, I don't need no tissue. Black men cry.
That's right.
The tissue. Every 24 hours I get, I'm doing the best I can. Beautiful Pain, 1992. There is no square footage I could ever live in. There is no rims, no jewelry, and no car. There is no net worth. There is no press release. There is no co-star. There is no collaboration in the world that could ever replace my mama. that could ever fill the void of what it's like to wake up and get married and want to be in something for the rest of your life, and it goes away.
You're making me cry.
Get Tyree some tissue. I
don't need no tissue.
Man, you U.S., man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I love you
You've
too,
been holding
brother.
this
Do
in
you
the whole
understand
interview,
how
though.
much power it is in letting it go?
Yeah, because you've been holding it the whole interview. I've been watching you.
You asked me the question.
I did, but I mean, I'm getting you some
You should have
tissue.
never asked the question
I love you,
if you
brother.
didn't want to see
I love you, brother. I love you. I love you.
how hard it's been to get through.
I love you. I love you, black man.
Okay, do you not cry?
Absolutely.
You might not bring it to the radio,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
but this is what being grown
Thank
is.
you, brother.
I'm not doing this.
I need one. My makeup gonna mess up.
Hear me.
My concealer
Hear
is
me.
sitting today.
See?
Hear me. Black men cry. When divorces happen, women aren't the only one that are devastated. When a miscarriage happens, women are not the only one that you should be checking on. When you can't put food on the table because your career goes up and then it goes down, stop calling, skipping over the man, and just checking on the woman.
So he said a lot there.
Yeah, I've seen that. I saw that clip.
Yeah, I want to know your observations, and I want to give you mine too.
I mean, I was someone that was slow to the process of therapy. I've been in therapy for about the last 5 to 6 years, and it's definitely helped me process some of that grief. It's also added more questions. I think therapy's great, but I mean, you know, like for me, I just, you know, I wish I really truly saw that, and I connected to that on a real level, because I understand what he goes through. Like I cry a lot. I remember again going back to like losing my mother-in-law, and we were packing up their apartment, and this was our last day there, and it just like really hit me, and I just couldn't, like, I was never going to ever go back to that apartment. They lived in an assisted living facility, and I just remember, like, you know, because all the people there knew us, and you know, it was even the lady that ran it, you know, she was just so, she spoke at my mother-in-law's funeral, like, you know, that's how much of a light she was. And so I think the thing about the Tyrese clip that I take from it is that I pray for bro, and I just also hope that he finds a way to find some good and feel good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't, what I took from that is like he's still in the throes of it. Like it's not something in the rearview mirror. It's something that he's literally driving through.
Yeah.
And so for me, you know, I mean, he has a movie to promote. That's why he's on the Breakfast Club. He's got a movie coming out. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, and I mean, that's a part of like living in the business. Like, you know, we have to do these things while in the midst of, you know, living in the business. You know,
Wow.
I have had to do that multiple times during the times where I've lost people. I've literally had to, like, I remember when I lost my mom, I was writing on an award show, and I was sending in stuff while I was in the waiting room.
My gosh.
You know what I'm saying? So that's just a part of, like, we also are men, that we are the machine with the engine. We got to keep things running, you know, and I'm sure women are the same. You know, I'm not trying to exclude. I'm just saying,
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
we're human beings that always have to still kind of keep the train moving, you know. And so I just wish that, you know, I hope for him that, because I mean, I think dude is so talented, you know what I'm saying? But talent doesn't mean anything if you're just, you know, continually impacted into a place where you feel beat down. And you
That's
know
right.
how I see that is like when he's those questions were his therapy. That allowed him to express himself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I wish him the best in terms of getting whatever he's going through in the rearview mirror.
Yeah. I feel the same. My heart goes out to him, and even the flip side of that perspective, right? Like, I was focusing also on the pain that he was illustrating, right? But also that question of, let me just get you some tissues. Let me get you some tissues. That to me almost felt dismissive, right? Like, I knew they wanted to show up for him and support him. They asked the question. But when you're in the throes of grief, sometimes even that small little step away to go get the tissue, it's like you need that person to just sit in it with you. Like, just let me cry. And I think as a society, we're so put off by tears. It makes us a little bit uncomfortable. It's like, oh no, stop doing that, kind of thing. So, my main takeaway from that is, when you are supporting someone in grief, if they're crying, just sit with them. Let the tears flow. Even if somewhere inside you, you're like, oh, out of courtesy, I got to go get a tissue. Don't leave them. Even if you say something like, my knee-jerk reaction is really, I want to give you a tissue right now, but I don't want to leave you in this moment. What do I do? Do you want me to get it?
Let me hug you and cry on my shirt.
Yeah.
Let my shirt be the tissue. Like, that's real. I mean, and like this, the way I know this, like, anybody that's dealt with our situations is like, there'll be times like where you're perfectly fine, and all of a sudden that wave will just hit, and I recognize it now even more with what my wife's going through. And sometimes I'll just catch her sitting, or sometimes I'll find her sleeping a little bit longer than she normally does. And, like, there's just certain things like you have to be aware of when that wave hits, and like, just let them get it out. And I know I go through that way more than I like to admit. I go through it a lot. I mean, it's like I say, in particular, when good things happen, that's the time when my grief hits the hardest, because I'm not able to share that with, some of the people that I would, like I said, my son I wasn't really a good athlete. My sons get their talent from their uncle, who's never seen him play a basketball game. I would give anything in my life to have my brother here to see his nephews play, so.
And I'm so thankful for you sharing that from your heart, because I know the way that it resonates with me, it's going to resonate with so many listeners that feel the same way, because I think that's a facet of grief that is not explored enough. Of, you're in the sad, but what happens when you're happy, and then that's overshadowed by the sad. It's a mix. I know you're a busy man. We're running low on time.
Okay.
So I have a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
One
I'll
being,
try to keep it short. I know I'm long.
No.
I'm sorry.
Listen, you are dropping some gems and some wisdom that I don't want to miss. I could talk to you for hours, right? But another thing that we do, I have this sugar jar, and this is one thing that I have interjected. I got it from my mom. My mom used to write down situations or even just a person's name on little slips of paper, and she would put it in her Bible as her testament to praying for them. And sometimes I would say, well, Mom, why do you just have a person's name on there? And she's like, all I need to know is a name. I don't even need to know that the whole name. The Lord already knows what's on my heart and what they need. So I interjected that process and that practice into my life, and this is something that I want to share with listeners, followers of the show, those that are in grief, is to submit both questions and also names to lift up in prayer. So there are several ways to get those messages to me, either through my website, kellyandco.com. Also, though, if I'm somewhere in person, I've got the sugar jar on me, you can add your slip. So the person I want to pray for today is Brian and Arnita Burton. And they also have a question that they've written, that they've also submitted, that I want to lift as well, and to ask you this question: how do you support someone who is grieving?
Mm. It's funny. I actually was asked something similar to this recently, and I think the thing is that there are times when you are there in any way you can be there physically for them, and then there are times when you need to allow them to have that space to be by themselves and endure what they need to endure. Because that's the one thing I know for me, there's times when I really I need a hug. I need, I need to be held. I need, support. I need to be told it's going to be okay. I need my back rubbed. And then there's times I don't want to be touched. There's times when I need to just take a walk or take a drive. I live not too far from the beach out here in LA. I go look at the water and just have my me time, my alone time. So I think it's in terms of that, you have to know how to gauge it to know if it's time to be more proactive or sometimes a little bit more passive.
I love it. Through your writing as well, because you write in such a way that connects life through comedy, but also there's some pain in there sometimes too, because in our community, realizing that it's a mix, right? And part of your role to elevate Black stories and put our the things that we have going on in our lives, bringing it to the forefront in a way that says recognize, but also support, also make sure that you are a contributor, always also make sure that you're an advocate for that. So in your opinion, how has being Black in America affected our ability to both laugh to keep from crying, and how has that shown up in your writing style and what you put out into the world?
Oh man, it's funny because growing up as like a stepchild of the Wayans family, I've always kind of learned that no matter what, the joke is the king.
Yeah.
And so it's always been about trying to find ways to process your pain through something that can make you laugh, bring some joy. There's a joke I tell on stage about how affected I was by Kobe Bryant's death. He was my favorite basketball player. And I remember finding out the morning he died, and I cried like a baby. Like, upon once the information was confirmed. Like, I watched Kobe's entire career. Like, I ended up I saw the 81-point game live. I saw when he hit the shot over the Phoenix Suns, go up 3-1. Like, I took my son to those games. I saw game 1 against Allen Iverson. Like, I saw his first game ever when he played it at the Forum. Like, I watched this kid's entire career. Met him only once, but and I was just so impacted by his life and everything, how he turned out and everything he became. And I felt bad because, like, I was so immersed in that. But when my mother passed at the funeral, I couldn't allow myself to cry because I had to look out for my sisters. And I had to look out for my family members. I'm the youngest in my family, but my sisters call me the little big brother because I had to, like, literally kind of take over and, carry the mantle that she would wanted me to do. And I'm like, well, why didn't I cry at my mother's funeral when I'm crying about a dude I barely knew? And I was like, because Mama didn't score 81 points. Like, like, Mama was dope. She made 81 great meals, but she didn't cook Jalen Rose.
You're crazy.
And Chris Bosh, like, but that's me. Like, that's how I try to transfer it. Like, it's like, yeah, my mom couldn't hit a layup for shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? She was nice and all, but she wasn't basketball nice. Like, and that's why I try to frame things. Like, you gotta take the good of stuff. Like, when my Uncle Clarence passed, You know, he was like the barbecue dude. He was the uncle that would drive me from New York to St. Louis. And he was an uncle. Like, you ever have, I don't know if you have that uncle, but I know a lot of people have that family member that wants to drive on the road.
Oh,
and won't
yeah.
let you stop.
Yep, I got an uncle that wants to drive from North Carolina to Texas.
Right.
Shout out to Uncle Hamp, and like
they won't let you
gonna
pee.
keep going.
You got to pee on the side of the road. You won't get on the rest stop. If you want something, yes, you, Bethany, you that uncle, you that auntie.
No, that's him. And I'm like, we don't have to keep time. We just like we don't have anywhere we have to be.
We literally like he would drive like when he lived in like basically southern New Jersey. We would leave at like 3 a.m, and we would get to St. Louis by like 8 p.m.
Oh my gosh!
Like
rolling.
He was rolling. You know what I'm saying? But like, so when I'm on the road, like when I'm driving, like going to basketball tournaments and stuff with my kids, like I always think of him. You know, like, you know, those are the little, like, it's weird stuff about like the whole grief thing. It's like little things, like the U.S. Open reminds me of my mother. Driving on the road reminds me of my uncle. You know what I'm saying? When I watch my kids play ball, it instantly takes me to my brother. You know what I'm saying? They literally have some of his moves, and he's never taught them. It's like it's genetics. Like you get to see certain things. It's insane to me sometimes. Like I marvel at it, and I'm just awed by it, and just inspired by it. And you know, but I just think that's the most amazing thing about it is that you really get a chance to embrace your lost loved ones through things that, you know, like I love when anytime a butterfly approaches me, you know, I always feel like it's one of my angels saying hi to me in person. Like they want to check on me.
I love it. And isn't that wonderful that we get to now frame that in a way that brings them into that moment? But what if you know, I don't know how heaven works, but what if they're on the other side of the veil and they are experiencing it, and that's why they come into your frame of reference, right? Like we won't know until we find out. But I think that's a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's what, you know, it's what gets you through the grief.
Yeah.
Because we're all, like I said, like you said, like you started this interview out asking me how am I functioning. It's like I function at a 4 almost all the time.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is like, how am I going to get through the day? Like I gotta stand up. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I gotta be Mitch Marchand. I gotta be accountable. I have to, you know, there's things required of me, and you know, we just can't sit in a shell and, you know, just wrap ourselves up all the time. So it's like the positives that I try to bring into my life about my lost loved ones are the things that allow me to keep going, because otherwise I would just, you know, stew in the losses of them, you know,
That's right.
and not in the lives that they lived. You know, I think that's very important to always, like, you know, be in a space where you honor the lives that they lived, not how they passed. Like, you know, like really embrace, you know, you know, it's funny. I'm a grown man. I've been with my wife. We've been together for a long time. We have boys. Our boys are 26 and 19. And I still adhere to certain things in my mother. Like, I buy my own orange juice now. But I never pour, like, a big, tall cup of orange juice.
You don't want to waste it.
I'm still, like that's the one thing. She never wanted to see us pour a big thing. Like, because orange juice is expensive.
Yeah. I know that's right.
So, like, I would, like, with this glass, I would pour the orange juice to here.
Not even 15%.
I like basically do shots of orange juice, and I buy the orange juice. I could buy more. I don't know why I still do this, but that's what I'm talking about. Like how your family members impact you. Because my son, coincidentally, does not pour little shots of orange juice. He's the orange juice god. My 19-year-old Coltrane. And every time I see him pour the orange juice, I'm like, yo, your grandmother would be so infuriated if she ever saw you. He's like,
wait till he starts buying it. When he starts buying it,
he gonna learn.
It's gonna trickle down. He gonna learn.
That Tropicana is expensive.
Listen, so I have so enjoyed this conversation, and I've got some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
To kick at you, and the point of this is for the audience to connect with you, to answer quickly without much thought.
Okay.
All right. So the first one is, your life is a movie. Which of the following roles does Grief play? Main character, supporting actor, villain, writer, or an audition that never got casted?
Supporting actor.
That's good. Which do you prefer, writing a joke or telling a joke?
Whew. I honestly, that's hard because having just come off of telling jokes last night, that's a great feeling when the jokes fly. But also, I remember the first time I ever wrote a joke that hit when I was like a cub writer, like assistant writer on the Wayans brothers. And the first time I wrote a joke, and I think it was a Sean joke, and we had a studio audience, and they laughed at my joke. That was just like the most insane feeling, like a room full of people laughing at, like it's just a room full of people laughing at a joke you've either written or that you tell. It's kind of 50-50, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm sorry.
No,
that's
okay. That's good.
That's just hard. That's really, really hard.
And listen, by the way, I don't know if you had anything to do with writing this, but what I say all the time, like if I see something that I like or somebody sends me something, I'm like, yep, cut, print, beautiful, guys, dynamite. Like I say that so much. Yeah. That's just imprinted in my brain forever. So from behind the sitcom to backstage at an award show, where have you had the most fun? And then on the flip side, where have you not had any fun?
Maybe it's recency bias, but the most fun I've had on an award show was writing the 2023 Emmys when Anthony Anderson hosted. Anthony's a really good friend of mine. We kind of came up in a game together. We both were like nothing when we both were out here trying to try to be discovered. And I was his host writer, and
he seems like a cool dude.
I think what it was just like, we've worked together before on the NAACP Image Awards. Like we've worked together for years together, but it was just something about that night that was like just like crystallized our working relationship in a way where he was like, he texted me the next day, and he never does, and he was just like, yo, you were my North Star last night. Like I literally just listened and trusted whatever you told me to do. And when you're writing a live award show, it's it can get pretty tumultuous and fever pitched back there, and everything's got to be within time. So I mean, I would have to say, based on that question, my best time working on an award show is basically that. My worst time working on an award show was something that didn't have to do with me per se. It wasn't about the writing. But I wrote this anniversary special for TD Jakes in Dallas, which I love. Don't look surprised, Bethany. I got God in my life. But anyway, but no, I wrote this special, and we brought all these we did all these video packages. But the night of the show with everybody there was some issue in the truck. And so the video packages didn't run at all. And it was just like the worst thing ever. Like you're literally like death by a 1,000 nails or whatever. Like it was just the worst thing ever. It wasn't me per se, but I felt responsible in a way. And I remember because it was a TD Jakes special that Tyler Perry and Soledad O'Brien hosted. So I got a chance to write for them.
Wow.
And they were really extra cool. And, I got a chance to write for Oprah Winfrey. That's the first time I got a chance to write for Oprah. Like I had to go in there and pitch this idea to her.
Wow.
And I was massively intimidated because she was sitting in the back of the room, and she was like, "Hello, Mitchell," and I was just like, "Oh."
Not Mitchell. Oh my God, I was
my name already. I was like, "Oh, shit." It's like your mom. Like you gotta go pitch to your mom.
Wow.
So that was kind of rough. But that was probably the roughest show because it was just like a technical disaster. But it had nothing to do with me. But I just felt horrible.
So 2022 Oscars,
Mm-hmm.
you were a writer for that.
Yeah.
And I imagine how traumatic that must have been when Chris Rock's presenting and then Will Smith comes up full force. Like, woof, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean, that was a rough night. But like I say, I try to get to the space where I'm really kind of over it at this point, because it wasn't something that happened to me. The only issue that I had with that, like you talk about grief, is just like, these shows, everybody looks at it as an award show and they look at it kind of almost like some cavalier thing that, but like we pour our hearts into those shows.
Yeah.
Like we live with those shows. They become our life for, 2 or 3 months. And we put so much work into it, and we live and die on everything that happens. So like people may tweet about what they don't like, but it's like everything was done with the purest of intentions of making sure that we did something that, entertained and satisfied the people at large. But
Right.
so for me, you talk about grief, like that was that was a rough couple of days after that. I mean, like. But I haven't. But I think in a real way, it's like I've dealt with so much worse in my life that it was just like, I had people that I didn't know. I know my number was that readily available to people. Like,
Oh
I'm
my
getting calls
gosh.
from like papers, news organizations all over the world, CNN, and then the wild part was I wake up in the morning. And, I go to of course, I made the dumbest mistake in the world and went to my Twitter page. And everybody's accusing me of the one that wrote the joke.
No. And then that just overshadows all the hard work that you put into
Well, that's what I always talk about. Like, this is the thing. Again, I always try to find a joke in tragedy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
my thing was like, here we are. That was the year that Will Packer and Shayla Collins, we had 2 black executive producers of this show. We had me and Susan McCullough, 2 black writers on the show. It's normally either me or him. It's never 2. We had two brothers writing the show. We had Regina Hall and Wanda Sykes hosting. My girl Wanda and Regina, those were both my girls, and that I was there to ride
Powerhouses.
for them,
Yeah.
And everything, all the bits worked. Everything went well. And then, the nicest black man in Hollywood did the most Suge Knight thing in the world. And who ever thought that was going to
so
happen?
close to the end of the shift, too. Like, it's so close.
I had my drink in my hand. Like, I was sitting there, and not to name drop, but I was sitting next to Francis Ford Coppola, the guy who made my favorite movie of all time. And he literally touches my arm and he says, "Did you guys write that?" And I'm like, "No, sir, we did not." No, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I did not mean to make you relive that trauma.
No, it's good. It's all good. Like I said, it's in the rearview mirror now. Like, I've seen Will since then. We did the 50 years of hip hop celebration together for the Grammys, and I love both of them. Like, I've gotten to work with both of them in my lifetime, and I just hate. It's just I just hate it ever happened.
Yeah, it's like a blemish.
Yeah,
it's that blemish.
I don't want it to affect either of them anyway. Like, I'm happy Bad Boys. Yeah. His new Bad Boys movie did well, and Chris is obviously gonna be Chris and killing on stage. Like, I just want us all as a people to get past it, because I think it doesn't do anything to improve us or impact us. It only just kind of seeks to kind of bog us down and just something that really doesn't matter anymore. It was something that happened, but it's a moment in history. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, my check's still cleared, so that's all I really.
Yeah. That part.
I was able to pay tuition that month.
Yes, that part. Yeah. Oh gosh. And I think it's a testament to You can be in the lows of lows, but you can get through it. You know, a blemish is a blemish, and we all make mistakes.
What is this,
like,
grief in the raw? That was
Yeah.
grief in the raw, but it was only for a couple of days. When that check hit, I was like, okay.
Got it. Okay, couple more.
Okay.
What's your favorite show to watch that you haven't worked on?
My favorite show to watch I haven't worked on. It's a toss up between two. Can I have two?
Okay. Yeah.
I love Abbott Elementary.
Mm.
I love Abbott Elementary.
Amazing show.
And I love Succession. I would have loved
Yes.
to. That's like kind of like my low key dream is to. I'm so known as a comedy writer, but I would love to work on a drama. You know,
Let's manifest.
Yeah, I would love to work on a drama. That's the thing. I've been reaching out to certain people and kind of putting that bug in people's ear. Like I know I have the capacity to do it. The first film I ever wrote wasn't even a comedy. It was a suspense thriller. So I know I have that drama bone in me.
Yeah.
But it's just I'm just so known as a comedy writer. So that sometimes you get a little bit pigeonholed. But those are the two shows. Yeah, Abbott. I would love. I just marvel at Quinta. I've known Quinta.
She's amazing.
I've known Quinta for a long time. We're both fans of one another. I'm just a tremendous. Like when she got her Emmy last year, I was the first person she saw when she
Listen,
came.
tell her I said hi.
Yeah, I will.
I love her. I feel like her character on Abbott, I feel like that's me. Like that
Really?
socially awkward, but it's like you want to be there for people and like, yeah. My
No.
husband watches it and he's like, yep, that's you. If you were a teacher, that would be you.
She's just. I mean, it's funny that I was working for a network. Marlon and I had a website that we were trying to do, kind of like Funny or Die, and that's when she was brought to my attention, and I just was like so enamored with her skill set and her talent, and I'm just so happy for her, and it was so funny when she won the award. I was right there. I was waiting for her to come backstage so I could hug her. And she was like, Mitch, you've been there from the beginning. And that was just such a sweet moment for us to have. But I'm going to have to ask her for a job eventually.
Yeah. Love that. I love it.
But there's a lot of mutual respect there. I love her to death. I think she's one of the best things this industry has ever produced.
I agree. What would you like for people to say about you once you're gone?
Weird, not to steal like the Kamala Harris thing, but I brought people joy.
Yeah.
You know, I wish, you know, I often think about this, which is frightening. I do think like well, how will people remember me? You know, and I think the thing is like, I wish that people would say that I made them happy. I gave them joy. I made them laugh. You know, I made them feel good. You know, I think those are the traits that I would love to be remembered as. I mean, a couple of people are definitely going to say I was an asshole, but you know, but
I love it.
because I have been that too. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an angel, but
haven't we all?
Yeah, but
Listen.
I would love to. The joy and the happiness and the laughter part, you know, I hope that to be my ending.
Mm-hmm. What has grief taken from you?
Grief has taken nothing from me. Grief has given me the ability to enjoy the great memories I have with the people that I lost. And grief has only improved my life from a sense that it just made me have to know that with the loss of that person, I had to step up in that place and be better for my loved ones.
I love it. And that was my last question, was going to be, what has grief given you? So you've answered that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. I didn't.
No, it's okay.
Because I do function in a space and just where I want people to understand that I don't look at grief as something that is a negative.
Yeah.
I think it's a part of life. It's something we all have to go through. It's just about how do we, as individuals, process that, and what do we do to utilize that to the best of our ability. And for me, I've always tried to let it be something that I feel in the moment upon which it happens, and then I process it, and then I try to do my best to honor the memory of my lost loved one, rather than belabor the fact that they're gone. I always think that, like I told my sisters, my mom was on life support. I basically said something to the effect of like, she's run the race. She's lived her life. Like I think sometimes we hold on when we should let go. And it's very hard to do. When my brother passed away, I had to turn the machines off. And that was probably one of the harder decisions I made in my life, but I did not want to see him suffer. And that's the biggest form of love you can give anybody, in the oddest way humanly possible, is to not allow them to endure any more pain.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to like keep those kind of things in perspective.
Thank you so much for this wisdom. Listen, I've been wanting to literally say this the entire interview. Hey, Mitch, you've got the juice now.
I knew you were going to do that.
How can people reach out to you? And are there any upcoming projects that you want to let the people know about?
Well, we got the Primetime Emmys coming up. I don't know when this is going to air, but that's September 15th. We've got Eugene and Dan Levy hosting. Going to be a really good night. Jesse Collins is producing it again. My good brother Jesse Collins. Very excited about that. Working on some pilots. Trying to get into the other side of not just like as Jay-Z says, make it a hot line, but make it a hot song. So I'm trying to boss up a little bit. So we're developing that stuff, like, and basically towards the tail end of this year to get ready for next year. And that's about it. Working on getting some stand-up dates coming up. I'm back in the saddle on my stand-up, so I'm looking forward to like maybe hitting the road a little bit towards the tail end of the year and getting some dates in.
Nice. And we will put your information in the show notes so people know how to reach out and share love.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I don't really go on Facebook that much, but I'm even on Spill. Like check me out on Spill. Like that's a great new social media site. I'm working on some stuff with them as well. In the year to come, working on like basically a project where I want to like talk to aspiring writers and give them a chance to ask me questions and stuff, which is I'm very unfamiliar with, because I'm always very afraid to give out advice because I don't want to steer anybody the wrong way. But I feel like at this advanced stage, I want to be able to at least share what I can with aspiring writers. So we're going to do something called Office Hours coming up soon on Spill. So, and with me and my boy are going to do a comedy situation on there. My boy Jeremy Gumbo Christian, he calls me Unc, and I call him Neff, and we're going to do the Unc and Neff show, which is basically about, two dudes from completely different sides of life and, what we enjoy about, our lifestyles and what makes us laugh. And we're gonna do a comedy show, and we're gonna do a podcast. So that's what's coming up.
I love it.
Maybe I can get somebody to help me with that.
Listen, you know who to call. Mm-hmm. This has been an incredible conversation, and I thank you for sharing your heart. You are indeed your ancestors' wildest dreams.
Well, I appreciate
that. I mean that. Thank you for sharing your insight and your wisdom. Y'all, this has been another episode of Grief in the Raw. I am your host, Kelli Holloway, and thank you so much, Mitch, for joining us. Y'all, take what you need, leave what you don't, share it with someone who needs it the most. Peace. thank you for joining me, Kelli Holloway, inside of today's episode. For a deeper dive, remember you can watch this episode on YouTube and listen on your favorite audio streaming platform. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. For more information about Grief in the Raw podcast and to connect with me, my special guest, and the Grief in the Raw community forum, visit kellyandco.com. All links are in this episode's description. Tremendous thanks to the producer of Grief in the Raw, Miss Bethany Anderson, and major shout out to Jeffrey Smith, who curated the soundtrack for the pod.